Welcome to another video on Patreon. This is Tim in Tokyo.
And this is Paul in New Hampshire trying to tame my hair. I've got morning hair and Tim's got evening hair. That's how it works when we're talking with you from two sides of the planet.
Yeah. So it's TV trivia this time, and I've got just one question, and then Paul's got some that he's put together. So first of all, this future sitcom actress, future at the time,
was I was going to say I'm not a prognosticator. Can't do that.
Was the first person to score 100% on the written pre-test to go on the $64,000 question game show. She went on the show and won the grand prize. Who was she? A. Carolyn Jones. B. Barbara Feldon. C. Barbara Eden. D. Dawn Wells.
Huh. Barbara Eden?
No.
Carolyn Jones?
No.
Barbara Feldon?
Yes.
Well, my heart told me Barbara Feldon, especially since my questions are all about Get Smart or, connected to Get Smart in some way.
Complete coincidence. Well, see, this morning I happened to watch a YouTube video about Barbara Feldon because it just happened to pop up, in the suggestions. And I got this bit out of it. And then this evening I found on YouTube a clip from the Television Academy interview of Barbara Feldon where she talks about it. So it was 1957 that she went on the show. They asked her, because she was in some kind of a Ziegfeld Follies revival.
I wondered if she was modeling by then, but I guess she was a dancer.
She was doing that too, and she was. Well, I guess it was more in the 60s that she did some commercials that got the attention of the right people to get her on Get Smart. So they asked what she was knowledgeable about, and she didn't feel like she was knowledgeable about anything. But as she thought about it, she thought, well, maybe I could do Shakespeare, because she had been reading Lear, kind of hoping that she might get to play a part in Lear someday. So she said Shakespeare, and she wanted some time, so she spent 3 months in her off time memorizing as much as she could about Shakespeare.
Wow.
But then the questions turned out to be kind of easy. And that written pretest that the video from this morning mentioned, in the interview she says they asked really dumb questions and she just happened to score 100% somehow.
Wow. So the questions were keyed specifically to Shakespeare?
Well, not in that written pretest. It was just kind of dumb stuff, but in her, the questions that she answered on the show were Shakespeare related.
Okay. Huh. That's really funny. She's an interesting character. I'd like to delve more into her life. She's never been married, although when I was 12, I totally would have proposed to her.
Oh, actually,
we were watching Get Smart.
The video I watched this morning mentioned her being married for a little while, like in the early 60s.
No kidding. Okay. Well, I wonder, I guess I must have read an unvetted website.
And it was, according to that video, it was from her husband that she got the last name Feldon.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Because that was not her birth family name.
I take that back.
But
anyway,
yeah, she never got married again.
And I would have proposed to her when I was 13.
Yeah, I'd propose to her now. She's in her 80s, but she's older than our parents.
Yeah, she's 89, I think.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hard to believe. Whenever she did the voiceovers for the Get Smart disc sets, as she did at least for season 1, she's kind of on the menu and speaking, telling us trivia before the shows, the episodes begin.
And, seasons 2 and 3 also. I've watched that far.
Guess she
Although
probably did that in the early
I started
2000s.
skipping those because sometimes they have spoilers in them. You're
But her
ruining the
voice sounds,
show.
yeah, her voice sounds no different to me. So because I love to listen to her voice, I I lived through the spoilers, I guess. But that was probably 20 years ago that she recorded those. Okay. So I have some questions related to Get Smart. I had meant to watch Get Smart and collect more this last couple of weeks, but I guess I sublimated my desire to watch more by doing extra research. So let's see. The first question is about Don Adams, as it might well be. Don Adams played a number of voice roles in cartoons in the 1960s and right up through the 1990s and even the early 2000s. He played Tennessee Tuxedo in the mid 60s and then Inspector Gadget in the 1980s, and even played a couple of roles, I think, near the end of his life in the live action Inspector Gadget movies. He played Inspector Gadget's dog, I think, just very, very briefly. And he also played a school principal in the cartoon Pepper Ann, a Disney cartoon in the early 21st century. That was his last voiceover role. Excuse me. He also guest appeared on a 1973 Scooby-Doo cartoon. What role did he play? A, Old Mr. Yardley. No explanation needed. It's old Mr. Yardley.
And I would have done it too if it weren't for these meddling kids.
For you MKs, they didn't even bother to write middling kids, later on in the series, I suppose. So A, Old Man Yardley or Old Mr. Yardley. B, an irritating parrot who, excuse me, sounds like I said parent. B, an irritating parrot who offers a crucial clue. C, an exterminator who hires the Scooby Gang. Or D, 3 different bumbling robots, identical bumbling robots sent to confuse the kids.
Okay, I'm going to go with the robots.
Nope, he played an exterminator who hired the Scooby Gang to work for him. But this is a kind of bonus question to that, which also fills out my questions to 4 or 5. I don't remember which. Adams played a dual role of sorts on that episode. What was the other role that he played? He played an exterminator and it's kind of a trick question.
An insect?
Well, think of it as it's I'll put it this way. Here's a clue. It's an easier question than you might imagine.
Did he also play Don Adams?
Yes, he did. He was
Scooby-Doo
Don Adams.
Movie.
It was a Scooby-Doo movie, right, in 1973, the second season of the Scooby-Doo movies show. He played himself having taken a job as an exterminator for no discernible reason. And
the parts just weren't coming in. So.
Well, I guess not. Right. He played an exterminator because the roles weren't coming in on the cartoon or in reality, apparently, because here he is on the Scooby-Doo movies. Adams was an inveterate gambler. Mm-hmm. He loved to gamble, and apparently, I don't know how much money he lost, gained, lost again over the course of his gambling, but he was, who knows? Maybe the mob was after him, and he had to do a Scooby-Doo movie to, collect a little extra scratch to pay them off. Sorry, that'll start some rumors that I'm sure no one wants to be associated with, so I have no proof of any of that. So, next question. Which of the following Get Smart regulars was also a classically trained operatic singer? A classically trained operatic singer. A, Barbara Feldon. B, Edward Platt, the chief. C, Bernie Koppel, the Siegfried, who was the
Coppell.
Coppell, sorry. Yes.
We pronounced it Koppel for years and years, and I always tell the story of the TV columnist who was asked if Bernie Coppell and Ted Koppel were brothers.
Yes.
Who spell their family names differently.
Right, right. That reminds me of another question asked to one of those, stump the trivia experts, wondering how Pierre Trudeau had time to draw and write Doonesbury. It's like, well, as a matter of fact, it's his son Gary. At least they're part
Well,
of the same family.
actually, no, they aren't even related. I was under that misapprehension for decades, and I was shocked to discover they're not related.
Huh. I wonder how we, boy.
You know what? I think our dad said that too.
Oh, well, that's probably it. I hate that when you hear something when you're a kid and you believe that it's true for the rest of your life and nobody can convince you otherwise. Oh man. Yeah, at one point Dad told us that Billy Joel's Piano Man was a Dylan song. And then one day, sure that it was a Dylan song, I found out who wrote it, and it was Billy Joel. It was not a Dylan song.
A little bit Dylan-esque, I guess, but yeah.
Well, I guess so. I
Or
guess
did they
so.
have it
But
mixed up with Mr. Tambourine Man?
well, it probably, and Mr. Tambourine Man has a chorus, which a lot of Dylan songs don't have, especially after about 1965 or 66.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so we've got two so far, or three: Barbara Feldon, Edward Platt, Bernie Coppell, and Dick. Sorry, dogs barking. And Dick Gautier, who played Jaime on the show. So which of these four was a classically trained operatic singer?
Werner Klemperer. No.
Well, he was a possibly classically trained conductor.
Right.
Since his father was a conductor as well, Otto Klemperer.
Okay. I'm going to say Ed Platt.
You're absolutely right. In fact, Ed Platt was in some movie musicals early in the early 50s. And he was a bass baritone, as you can well imagine. Dick Gautier has a Batman connection.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't an operatic tenor or anything.
Yeah,
What's the Batman connection?
This came up in my interview with the Williamses.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
because he played Batman in the Equal Pay PSA
From 73.
Yeah, with Yvonne and Bert.
Right, right. Yeah, I'm so sorry I couldn't be part of that interview. I really missed out. But family duties wound up getting in the way. And we didn't want to cancel the interview with them because, we don't want to jerk our guests around. So let's see. So another question riding on that question. Sorry, I've got two dogs fighting to the left of me now. Franklin is biting Carter's neck. It's like, this is exactly where I want you to be doing that, boys. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, I feel like a lion tamer. Give me a chair and I'll continue to ask these questions. So which of those four actors, Feldon, Platt, Coppell, or Gautier, also appeared in Alfred Hitchcock's late masterpiece North by Northwest from 1959 with Cary Grant? Just take a wild guess.
Gautier.
Ed Platt. Platt played a lot of character parts in the 50s in Hollywood films. He was in that film. He was in Written on the Wind, 1956 Douglas Sirk film. That's one of my favorite overblown melodramas, kind of overblown on purpose, with Robert Stack and Rock Hudson and Lauren Bacall. Worth seeing. Criterion just came out with a nice Blu-ray remastered edition of it. He's also in Rebel Without a Cause with James Dean and Natalie Wood, and Jim Backus as James Dean's dad. Lovey, we've got to get this kid under control. Okay, final questions. Buck Henry, who was the co-creator of Get Smart with Mel Brooks, was under the direction of producer Daniel Melnick, who ordered a series that could cash in on two popular film franchises of the 1960s. So it was meant to be a parody that kind of mixed together elements of these two series. One of them was James Bond, obviously. But the other was the other franchise/series was one of the following four. Letter A, Inspector Clouseau, B. Philip Marlowe, the hard-boiled detective about whom many movies were made throughout the century. C. Parker, based on novels by Richard Stark, the pen name of Donald Westlake, who's kind of a career criminal who was also charming. And D. Mr. Moto, a Japanese detective who had a brief comeback in the 1960s. He was in a lot of 30s and 40s films until, well, 30s films anyway, until World War II got wound up and Americans were extremely anti-Japanese, as we all know.
Mm-hmm. Well, actually, the answer to this was in the video I watched this morning, Clouseau.
Yes, that's right. Yes, I think... Yes, what did the Pink Panther say when he stepped on an ant? Dead ant, dead ant, dead ant, dead ant, dead ant.
Right, I forgot about that one.
This is where we go for adult humor, folks. This is your show. Right, so a bonus question popping out of that having to do with Buck Henry, and this ought to be pretty easy as well. What comedy series did Buck Henry make 10 appearances on in the 1970s? I'm not going to give you any options this time.
Oh, I feel like I should know this.
10 guest appearances. But I'll give you another hint. It's between the beginning of this show and 1980. It was the second half of the 70s.
Was this a show that we watched much?
As we got older, yes.
Okay. MASH?
No.
No, that went past 1980.
Well, he only appeared up through 1980.
Okay.
He never made any appearances after that.
I can't think what it would be.
Saturday Night Live.
Ah, okay. Okay. I was thinking sitcoms. Okay.
Oh, yes. Well, I don't blame you. I did just say comedy series because I wanted to leave it open. I was afraid the question would be too easy. Yeah, he made 10 appearances between, I think, 1978 and 1980 because it was a fledgling show. He was a friend of Lorne Michaels, and he just made lots of guest appearances. In fact, I believe he was on one of the very first episodes, and kind of, their musical guest was, I think, Paul Simon.
That goes back to what, 75?
Trying to remember. I'm trying to look it up live here, but I just want to make sure. 75, yeah, first appeared in 1975, right. So one of the most famous appearances that Henry made was in a samurai delicatessen sketch with John Belushi as the samurai. And Belushi swung his sword and it nicked Buck Henry in the forehead. And so in the next scene, his next sketch, he's wearing a Band-Aid on his forehead. And by the end of the episode, all the cast members were wearing Band-Aids on their foreheads in solidarity with Buck Henry. Something you could do on live TV. Okay, well, that's all I've got.
Okay, cool. Okay, well, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again in a couple weeks when we come up with some trivia again.
Yes, it's amazing how quickly you can come up with trivia when you've got a gun pointed at your head that says 8:15 tomorrow morning. You have to record this podcast.
Okay, see you next time.